Ron DeSantis refuses to say if he'll run for president. Elon Musk finally buys Twitter. And COVID school closures caused historic learning setbacks. That and more on this week's headlines. Welcome to America Uncovered. I'm Chris Chappell. 2.3 million illegal immigrants were apprehended at the U.S. southern border this year, the most ever recorded. And that's just counting the ones who were caught. According to White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre, this new migration challenge is driven by people who are fleeing falling regimes and economic collapse in Venezuela, Nicaragua, and also Cuba. So people are leaving regimes on the verge of collapse. It makes sense. This explains why so many people are fleeing California. In fact, we accidentally created an unofficial series on how California is falling apart. You should check it out. But how bad could it really be in California? I mean, it's not like there are white supremacists giving Nazi salutes at freeway overpasses in Los Angeles. Oh wait, that's actually happening. Let me get this straight. White supremacists are supporting Kanye West. That would be like someone from PETA supporting a butcher because they liked what the butcher said about the Jews. Am I saying PETA is anti-Semitic? Considering they compared eating meat to the Holocaust, I'd say they're not anti-Semitic. Los Angeles Mayor Eric Garcetti tweeted, "There is no place for discrimination or prejudice in Los Angeles." Yeah, Los Angeles has no place for racism. Except, of course, on the LA City Council, where 3 of its members made overtly racist remarks. That, by the way, is yet another story we covered in our How California is Falling Apart. One person who might be planning to flee California is the state's governor, Gavin Newsom. Specifically, he may be planning to try and move to the White House. Newsom has been running attack ads in red states, despite, living in California. Most prominently, Newsom ran attack ads against Texas Governor Greg Abbott and Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, who will likely be a presidential candidate in 2024. But Newsom denied he would run for president, saying that if he's re-elected governor of California, he would finish his full 4-year term, ending in 2026. So, what? He's spending hundreds of thousands of dollars attacking Republicans in different states just for the love of the game? Why not? I mean, it's not like California has any of its own problems to focus on instead. But California state senator and rival gubernatorial candidate Brian Dahle didn't believe Newsom's claim that he was committed to California, saying the governor is focused on running for president, and he's going to leave California just like he left San Francisco, with homeless people on the street when he said he was going to solve those issues. So he's saying that Newsom is a liar who won't keep his promises or solve any issues. Wow, Newsom really is trying to become president, isn't he? As for the Republican presidential nominee, many assume Ron DeSantis will be in the race. But at Florida's gubernatorial debate, DeSantis refused to answer if he planned to run for president in 2024. DeSantis isn't exactly forthcoming with information. His administration was ordered by a judge this week to turn over records regarding him flying immigrants from Texas to Martha's Vineyard, despite, living in Florida. Oh, come on, Ron, just admit you're setting yourself up for a presidential run. This is like when Andrew Garfield kept denying that he was going to be in the last Spider-Man movie, despite everyone knowing it was going to happen. And that's a perfect analogy, since Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man and Florida's governor both constantly have to deal with giant, dangerous reptiles. More after the break. Welcome back. Speaking of places without much unity, the U.S. Supreme Court. Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas temporarily blocked a Georgia grand jury subpoena. That subpoena would have forced U.S. Senator Lindsey Graham to testify before a panel investigating possible criminal interference by Donald Trump and his allies after the 2020 presidential election. This stems from a call in which then President Trump asked Georgia's Secretary of State to find enough votes to overturn Biden's victory in the state. To be clear, this is different from the January 6th panel, which is investigating whether or not Trump should be indicted for allegedly inciting the mob that stormed the Capitol. Honestly, keeping track of all the lawsuits against Trump is like keeping track of all the X-Men movies' timelines. It's a convoluted, confusing, expensive mess that you know in the end probably won't really amount to anything. Lindsey Graham tried to appeal the subpoena in a lower court, but the appeal was denied. His lawyers then made an emergency appeal to the Supreme Court. Clarence Thomas, who's in charge of emergency appeals, delayed this subpoena. The delay gives Graham's lawyers more time to figure out how to block it permanently. And Thomas made this decision without bringing it before the other Supreme Court judges. Many found this very controversial and suspicious, but I can't blame him, because I don't always ask permission from my coworkers before making decisions. For example, I'm a hat guy now. Deal with it. Can't stop me, Matt and Shelley. And after making this decision, there were calls for Thomas to resign or be impeached, because that's what everyone does these days whenever someone does something they don't like. House of Dragons changed something from the books? Those writers need to be impeached. Many accuse Thomas of having a conflict of interest in his decision on this matter, since his wife, Ginny Thomas, asked lawmakers in Arizona and Wisconsin to overturn the 2020 presidential election results in those states in Trump's favor. Ginny Thomas was questioned by the January 6th panel about this, where she told them she believed there was widespread voter fraud that should be investigated. So to simplify it, people are saying that Clarence Thomas protected Lindsey Graham against a subpoena from an investigation into possible election interference in Georgia. And he did this in order to protect his wife, who was roped into a different investigation over the storming of the Capitol on January 6th, for her role in possible election interference in Wisconsin and Arizona. He really doesn't want her getting subpoenaed, since defying a subpoena could get her jail time, like it did for former Trump advisor Steve Bannon. There, simplified. Honestly, the conflict of interest accusation is worth looking into, but it's impossible to describe it without feeling like this guy. Forget the X-Men movies. Even the Doctor Who timeline is easier to follow than all this. And after the break, Elon Musk finally goes through with it. Welcome back. Elon Musk is now Chief Twit. Musk finally closed his $44 billion purchase of Twitter, thus concluding the most expensive troll of all time. Or maybe just starting the most expensive troll of all time. Musk entered Twitter carrying a sink and tweeted, "Let that sink in." Okay, it's not the most expensive troll of all time, it's the most expensive dad joke of all time. But hey, at least he's getting good value for his money. Musk started his ownership of Twitter by firing several executives, including the former Twitter CEO and the executive in charge of legal, policy, and trust and safety. She had a key role in banning Donald Trump from Twitter. Musk has called that decision morally bad and said he would reinstate Trump, although Trump himself has said he's going to keep truthing his truths on his own Truth Social platform. While Trump might not be back on Twitter as of this recording, many conservatives are still celebrating Musk's takeover of Twitter. They want to see less censorship on Twitter. Meanwhile, many liberals on Twitter are freaking out and talking about leaving Twitter. There's some real "I'm moving to Canada after the election" vibes here. I'm just going to say it, I don't think people are really going to leave. The first post-pandemic national testing scores are in, and they show that children nationwide had major declines in reading and math comprehension after school closures over the past 2 years. This news article is saying kids today can't read? It's pretty mean, but at least they're doing it in a way they'll never know about. We're also seeing the effects of other policies implemented during the pandemic. This week, a New York City judge ruled that sanitation workers fired for not complying with the city's vaccine mandate must be rehired and given back pay. The judge said the vaccine mandate for these workers violated their rights and was arbitrary and capricious, since the vaccine mandate was lifted for employees in the private sector but not in the public sector. Back pay is good for those workers, but it's going to be a little harder for kids to receive back education. Reading levels across the country dropped to their lowest scores in 30 years, and math scores saw the largest decrease ever recorded. According to the commissioner of the National Center for Education Statistics, when we experience a 1 or 2 point decline, we're talking about it as a significant impact on a student's achievement. In math, we experienced an 8-point decline, historic for this assessment. So it's official. Lockdowns made people dumber. That explains the popularity of Tiger King. There were declines in every single state, but that hasn't stopped people from trying to use this to score political points. For example, while Florida's test scores dropped, they dropped slightly less than most other states on average, putting them at a higher ranking than they've ever been. Ron DeSantis said, "In Florida, our 4th grade students rank number 3 in reading and number 4 in math, achieving top 4 ranking in both English and math for the first time in state history, while lockdown California and New York aren't even in the top 30. So he's bragging that while Florida's scores are still terrible, they're at least less terrible than liberal states. They're the cream of the crop. Weird flex, but okay. Meanwhile, Gavin Newsom is bragging that California actually minimized learning loss, despite the schools being closed longer than most any other state. Reading scores didn't drop, and math scores dropped less than the national average. So both governors, who are definitely not running for president in 2024, just interpreted the data to whatever made them look best. And here I was worried it was only kids that had problems with reading and math comprehension. There might be an upside to this, though. With the American education, economy, and political systems all failing, the United States might be seen around the world as a failing regime, which means fewer illegal immigrants will want to flee to the U.S. Turns out Biden isn't destroying the country after all. He's just fixing the border crisis. That's some real 4D chess. So what do you think about the stories we covered this week? Leave your comments below. And if you want to help us deliver nonpartisan news, be sure to support America Uncovered by going to patreon.com/America Uncovered. All it takes is as little as $1 or more per episode to fight YouTube censorship and demonetization. We rely on your support to help us keep making great episodes. Once again, I'm Chris Chappell. Thanks for watching America Uncovered.